Get that in front of you, and then back here, yes.
Okay, I'd like to add one or two things into the discussion, in particular about your second bullet about the VentureLabs. I'm director of VentureLab Twente. I had this presentation yesterday. There are some key things that I'd like to re-emphasize here. One of them is, as was stated also, that most of our companies come from outside the university. I see with STPs that there is a lot of focus also in our companies from the university. Within 3 years we've got more than 200 companies joining our VentureLab, and 90% comes from outside the university. And I believe that there's the source of major economic growth. That's where job creation starts. I think that the reason we started VentureLab is job creation, and not for getting a high return for venture capitalists. So that brings me to the second point, and that's about assessment. A lot of programs have a strong assessment on a high entry level, or high entry barrier if you like, to accept new clients. And we don't do that. We have reverse. I think we accept, well, of course, with some sort of threshold, but over 90%. And what we see is that a lot of good entrepreneurs, they have poor ideas, but the other way around. People with a very good idea are lousy entrepreneurs. And if you have very high thresholds, you sort of delete them out of the system. And the key thing again is that we have those STPs to create high-tech jobs and future economic wealth, and not short-term return for investors. So I think we should consider that. By having 200 incubator companies in our VentureLab, it also means that we are not big enough to house them all. And apparently facilities are not so important. I think of the 200, only 10 in our situation join our facilities. It means that now we become more of a virtual incubator or a virtual organization. And that's really the way to accelerate and speed up, because people can come in, can come out, can have contact at the times they need it. They don't necessarily need to sit there. So virtual incubation, low assessment levels, companies from outside the university, you create an ecosystem. And I think an ecosystem is one step beyond the STP. And I think we further have to rethink and redevelop the STP concept, perhaps along these lines. So that's my answer to your second bullet.
Thank you very much.
I think it's
yes, I think there is definitely something in the VentureLab model, as there was in the previous Unispin type of projects that came out of Twente. They are a hotbed of ideas, innovation in the field of company startup. But I do believe that whereas you can very easily adapt their models anywhere else in Europe and in much of the rest of the developed world, you still need to be very careful about adapting those models in developing economies. You need to you need to understand where these sophisticated models that have come out of Europe depend on certain assumptions about the way people think, behave, operate within an economy, and the way the economy works around them. If you really understand that about your own situation in a different type of economy, a different culture, different set of attitudes, you can adapt those models successfully. I'm convinced of it, because fundamentally they're about entrepreneurship. And if you can get to the essence of what entrepreneurship is, that's built into every human being's genomes in some measure. So there is a point of commonality. Okay, we must